r/ProRevenge my cheating BF called me ugly, so I exposed his affair to everyone. The screenshot of Jake texting my former best friend about how clingy and pathetic I was still glowed on my phone screen when I heard his key in the lock. My hands were shaking, not from heartbreak, but from pure rage. 2 years of my life. 2 years of believing I'd found my person, only to discover he'd been screwing around with Melissa for God knows how long. Babe, I'm home. Jake called out cheerfully, like he hadn't just spent the afternoon at her apartment while I was at work. Like he hadn't been lying to my face for months. I stayed on the couch, clutching my phone. In here. He strolled into the living room with that easy smile that used to make my stomach flutter. Now it made me sick. How was your day? You look tired. Interesting that you'd say that. I held up my phone, the damning text thread visible. Because according to this, I also look clingy and pathetic. Oh, and apparently I'm getting suspicious lately. The color drained from his face, but only for a second. Then something shifted in his expression, something cold and calculating that I'd never seen before. You went through my phone? His voice was ice. Your laptop was open. Notifications were popping up. I stood, my legs unsteady. Jake, how could you? How could I what? Finally find someone who doesn't suffocate me? He laughed, actually laughed. Christ, Emma, look at yourself. You've let yourself go completely. When's the last time you even tried to look nice for me? The words hit like a physical blow. I looked down at my work clothes, the same professional attire I wore to my marketing job, the same style he used to compliment. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that I'd been settling. His eyes were cruel now, like a mask had been ripped off. Melissa makes an effort. She's fun, she's gorgeous, she doesn't spend every weekend in sweatpants analyzing our relationship to death. We live together, Jake. I thought we were building something. Building something? He snorted. Emma, be honest with yourself. You're lucky anyone puts up with you at all. You're clingy, you're boring, and frankly, you're not nearly attractive enough to be this high maintenance. The room spun. This was a man who told me I was beautiful every morning. Who talked about marriage, about kids, about growing old together. Who'd held me when I cried about my insecurities and sworn I was perfect just as I was. So this is who you really are, I whispered. This is me being honest for once instead of sparing your feelings. He grabbed his jacket from the chair. I'm going out. Maybe stay at Mel's tonight. Give us both some space to think about whether this is worth salvaging. Whether it's worth, I couldn't finish the sentence. Look, if you can handle sharing me, maybe we can work something out. But I'm not giving up the best thing that's happened to me just because you can't handle reality. The front door slammed behind him, leaving me alone in the apartment we'd chosen together, surrounded by the life I thought we were building. I sank back onto the couch, his words echoing in my head. You're lucky anyone puts up with you at all. But as the initial shock faded, something else took its place. Something sharp and focused and absolutely furious. Jake thought I was pathetic? He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his voice, you're not nearly attractive enough to be this high maintenance. By 3 a.m., I was pacing our bedroom, asterisk is asterisk bedroom now, I supposed, replaying every moment of the past few months. All those late nights at work. The way he'd started putting his phone face down. How he'd stopped initiating sex, then made me feel desperate when I did. The worst part? I'd actually started believing something was wrong with me. I'd been Googling how to spice up your relationship and what to do when your boyfriend seems distant. I'd bought new lingerie that sat unworn in my drawer. I'd second-guessed every outfit, every conversation, every attempt at affection. All while he was running to Melissa, probably laughing about how clueless I was. Jake stumbled in around 4 a.m., reeking a perfume that definitely wasn't mine. He didn't even try to be quiet as he grabbed clothes from the dresser. Going somewhere? I asked from the bed. He jumped. Jesus. You scared me. Just wondering if you're moving out, or if I should start looking for a new place. Let's not make any rash decisions. His tone was gentler now, probably calculating how much breaking our lease would cost him. We both said things we didn't mean. Did we? I sat up, studying his face in the dim light. Because you seemed pretty clear about your feelings. I was angry. You violated my privacy. You were cheating on me with my best friend. Asterisk former asterisk best friend, apparently. He had the audacity to look annoyed. And it's not like you two were even close anymore. My blood pressure spiked. Melissa and I had grown apart over the past few months, but now I understood why. She'd been pulling away because she was screwing my boyfriend, and I blamed myself for that too. Pack whatever you need for work, I said quietly. Stay at Melissa's tonight. We'll figure out the rest this weekend. Something in my tone must have surprised him because he actually nodded. Yeah. Okay. That's probably smart. I watched him stuff clothes into his gym bag, this man I'd shared a bed with for 2 years. He looked smaller somehow. Ordinary. How had I ever thought he was out of my league? After he left, I made coffee and opened my laptop. If I was going to do this, really do this, I needed to be smart about it. First, I screenshotted everything. The text messages, the Instagram photos Melissa had been posting from places I now recognized as spots Jake had claimed to be networking at. There was even a picture of them at the restaurant where he'd supposedly had that important client dinner last month. Then I started digging deeper. Jake was obsessed with his image. His Instagram was carefully curated, the successful young professional, the devoted boyfriend, the guy who had it all figured out. His family adored him. His coworkers respected him. His friends thought he was the gold standard of boyfriends. He built his entire identity around being the good guy. But here's what I knew that none of them did. Jake's birthday party was in 2 weeks. His parents were flying in from Portland. His boss would be there. His college buddies, his coworkers, even his grandmother who constantly bragged about her perfect grandson to anyone who'd listen. Melissa would probably be there too, playing innocent while I was painted as the crazy ex-girlfriend who couldn't handle the breakup. I opened a new document and started typing. If Jake wanted to see pathetic, I'd show him pathetic. But it wouldn't be me on display. It would be him. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Not because I was heartbroken, though I definitely looked like I'd been hit by a truck, but because I had research to do. Real, methodical, destroy your life kind of research. I started with Melissa's social media. We'd been friends for 5 years before Jake came along, which meant I knew all her passwords, her habits, her tells. She was sloppy when she thought no one was watching. Her Instagram stories showed a different picture than her main feed, candid shots at restaurants I recognized, her wearing Jake's Columbia sweatshirt that I'd bought him for Christmas. But the real goldmine was her Twitter. Melissa treated it like a diary, thinking her 200 followers were just random strangers. Scrolling back through the past 6 months was like watching a horror movie where I was the clueless victim. When he makes you laugh during the worst week ever, smiling face with hard eyes #blessed, posted the same day I'd been stressed about my mom's cancer scare. Jake had been working late that entire week. Some people just settle for mediocre and then wonder why they're unhappy. Woman shrugging, posted right after Jake and I had celebrated our 2-year anniversary. The anniversary where he'd seemed distracted and checked his phone constantly. You know it's real when he says he's never felt like this before. That one was from 3 weeks ago, right around the time Jake had started picking fights with me about stupid things like leaving dishes in a sink. Each post was a knife twist, but I screenshotted every single one. Then I cross-referenced the timestamps with my own calendar, with Jake's supposed work schedule, with the lies he'd been feeding me for months. The pattern was so clear it was almost insulting. Did he really think I was that stupid? My phone buzzed with a text from Jake, *K babe, thinking we should talk tonight. Maybe grab dinner? I want to fix this. *. I stared at the message. Last night he told me I was ugly and lucky anyone would tolerate me. This morning he wanted to fix this, probably because he'd realized how expensive breaking our lease would be, or maybe Melissa wasn't as eager to play house as he'd hoped. I texted back, *, sure. Our usual place? *. Perfect. 7 p.m.? Love you. *. Love you. The casual way he tossed that around now made me nauseous. But it also gave me an idea. I spent the rest of the day creating a timeline. Not just of his affair, but of everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every time he'd made me feel crazy for suspecting something was off. I had dates, screenshots, even credit card statements from our joint account showing charges at places he'd claimed to be with other people. Then I did something that felt deliciously vindictive. I started planning his birthday party. See, Jake had mentioned wanting to have people over, but in typical Jake fashion, he'd done zero actual planning. He just expected it to come together, somehow, which really meant he expected me to handle everything while he took credit. Even now, probably assumed I'd either help organize it or just disappear quietly so he wouldn't have to deal with the awkwardness. But I was still his girlfriend as far as everyone else knew. His family had my number. His friends knew me as the party planning one in the relationship. It would be weird if I didn't help organize it. So I started making calls. Mrs. Chen? Hi, it's Emma. I wanted to surprise Jake for his birthday. By 6 p.m., I had RSVPs from 37 people. His parents, his brother's family, his boss, his entire college friend group, half his office, and yes, Melissa, who'd responded with enthusiasm about celebrating Jake when his mom had called her. The party was set for Saturday night. In our apartment. With me as the gracious hostess. Jake was going to get exactly the birthday surprise he deserved. I showed up to dinner wearing the black dress Jake had always said was his favorite. My hair was done, makeup perfect, I looked like the girlfriend he'd claimed to love just 12 hours after calling me ugly. The cognitive dissonance was almost funny. Jake was already at our table, and his face lit up when he saw me. Wow. You look incredible. Thank you. I slid into the booth across from him, noting how he'd chosen the corner table where we'd had our first official date. Everything about this was calculated. I ordered your usual, he said, gesturing to the wine glass in front of me. Listen, Em, about last night. You were upset, I said smoothly. We both were. Emotions were running high. He blinked, clearly thrown by my reasonable tone. Exactly. I said things I didn't mean. You know, I think you're beautiful. Do I? I took a sip of wine and watched him squirm. Because you seemed pretty convinced about what was it? Lucky to find anyone willing to put up with me? I was lashing out. You went through my phone. Because you've been acting strange for months. I leaned forward slightly. Jake, if there's something going on, just tell me. I'd rather know the truth. This was his moment. His chance to come clean, to show even a shred of the integrity I'd once believed he had. Instead, he reached across the table and took my hand. There's nothing going on. I've been stressed about the promotion, and I know I've been distant, but that's on me. You're the best thing in my life. The lie came so easily I almost admired the craftsmanship. He even managed to look sincere, thumb stroking across my knuckles like he'd done 1,000 times before. Speaking of which, I said casually, your mom called me today. His hand stiffened slightly. About what? Your birthday party. She wanted to coordinate travel plans with the celebration. I smiled. I told her I'd love to host something at our place. 37 people confirmed so far. The color drained from his face. 37? That's a lot. Maybe we should keep it small? But it's your 27th. Your parents are flying out, your college friends want to celebrate, even your boss is coming. Plus Melissa seemed really excited when your mom reached out to her. Melissa? His voice cracked slightly. Why would my mom call Melissa? Because she knows we're all friends? She thought it would be weird not to invite her. I tilted my head innocently. That's not a problem, is it? Jake was sweating now, trying to figure out how to object without raising suspicion. No, it's just, didn't you two have some kind of falling out? Not really. We've been busy with our own lives, but that doesn't mean we're not still friends. Actually, this party might be a nice chance to reconnect. Our food arrived, giving Jake a moment to collect himself. I watched him work through the implications, his parents meeting his side piece, his coworkers and friends all in one room while he tried to manage his double life, the impossibility of keeping his stories straight with everyone there. Maybe, he said carefully, we should postpone until things are less complicated. What's complicated about it? I cut into my salmon, keeping my tone light. Unless there's something you're not telling me? Another perfect opening. Another chance for honesty. No, of course not. I just don't want you to go through all that trouble. It's no trouble at all. I actually love party planning, you know that. I smiled sweetly. Besides, I already put down deposits for catering and decorations. It's going to be perfect. The trap was closing, and we both knew it. Jake spent the rest of dinner trying to talk me out of the party without being obvious about it. He suggested a romantic weekend getaway instead, then pivoted to claiming he might have to work that Saturday, then circled back to worrying about the expense. Each excuse was weaker than the last. The catering alone must be costing a fortune, he said, pushing his pasta around his plate. I don't want you spending your savings on this. Our savings, I corrected. And don't worry, I used the joint credit card. The one you've been charging those lunch dates to Romano's on. I watched his fork pause midair. You know, the receipts that show meals for two when you told me you were eating alone during work breaks? His laugh came out strangled. Those were client meetings. I mentioned that, didn't I? Did you? I must have forgotten. I dabbed my lips with my napkin. Well, whoever you were treating to those expensive lunches, I'm sure they appreciated it. Jake's phone buzzed against the table. The screen lit up with a text preview, and even upside down, I could make out Melissa's name and the words "Can we talk?" This party thing. He flipped the phone over quickly, but not before I saw his jaw clench. Sorry, work stuff. On a Tuesday night? They really do keep you busy. I signaled the waiter for another glass of wine. Speaking of busy, I should probably give you the guest list to review. Make sure I didn't forget anyone important. Guest list? Well, I couldn't remember everyone's dietary restrictions. Your mom mentioned your boss is vegetarian, and I want to make sure there are options. Plus I need to coordinate parking. Mrs. Henderson from 4B offered to let people use her spots, but only if we keep the noise down after 11. I was making this up as I went, but Jake didn't need to know that. Each detail made the party more real, more inevitable. Actually, he said, voice tight, I just remembered, I might have a work conference that weekend. On your birthday? That's terrible timing. I pulled out my phone. What's the conference? I can call your office tomorrow and explain about the family flying in. I'm sure they'd understand. No. The word came out sharp enough to turn heads at nearby tables. Jake forced a smile and lowered his voice. I mean, no need. I might be able to rearrange things. Are you sure? Because your mom already bought non-refundable tickets. She's so excited, she said she hasn't seen you in months. Another lie, but Jake's guilty conscience would fill in the blanks. She's bringing that photo album from your childhood. You know, the one with all the embarrassing pictures she loves showing your girlfriends? His phone buzzed again. This time he declined the call without looking, but I caught Melissa's name on the screen. Popular tonight, I observed. Spam calls. You know how it is. But sweat was beading on his forehead despite the restaurant's air conditioning. I excused myself to the bathroom, leaving Jake alone with his buzzing phone and mounting panic. In the mirror, I reapplied my lipstick and smiled at my reflection. The woman staring back didn't look like someone who should be grateful for scraps. She looked like someone who was about to serve justice on a silver platter. When I returned to the table, Jake was scrolling frantically through his phone, probably trying to figure out how to warn Melissa without creating a text trail. Everything okay? I asked, sliding back into the booth. Perfect, he lied, slipping his phone into his pocket. Just excited about Saturday. Good, I said, raising my wine glass in a mock toast. It's going to be a night none of us will ever forget. The rest of the week played out like a carefully orchestrated dance. Jake threw himself into damage control mode, making increasingly desperate attempts to sabotage his own birthday party without appearing suspicious. Wednesday morning, I woke to find him sick with what he claimed might be food poisoning. He lay in bed groaning dramatically, suggesting we should probably cancel everything just to be safe. Oh no, I said, pressing the back of my hand to his forehead with mock concern. You don't feel feverish though. Maybe it's just stress? I read that anxiety can cause stomach issues. Maybe, he mumbled, then perked up hopefully. But we can't risk getting everyone sick, right? Of course not. That's why I already called Dr. Martinez's office. You have an appointment at 2. The color drained from his face. That's not necessary. Jake, your parents are flying across the country. The least we can do is make sure you're actually sick before we cancel. I kissed his forehead sweetly. I'll drive you myself. Miraculously, his symptoms disappeared within the hour. Thursday brought a new tactic. He came home with flowers and that puppy dog expression he used when he wanted something big. I've been thinking. Instead of this party, what if we took that trip to Napa you've always wanted? Just the two of us. We could leave Friday, make a whole romantic weekend of it. I buried my face in the bouquet, roses, my favorite, though he'd gotten the color wrong. That sounds amazing, but we can't just abandon everyone. Your college roommate is driving down from Portland. Mike will understand. And your mom bought that dress specifically for the party. She sent me pictures, Jake. She's so proud of you. I looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes. Unless there's some reason you don't want everyone together in one room? His smile faltered. Don't be ridiculous. Then what's with all the party alternatives? Yesterday you wanted to cancel, today you want to flee the state. Are you having some kind of quarter-life crisis? I'm 27, Exactly. Maybe that's what this is about. I set the flowers down and took his hands, channeling every acting class I'd taken in college. Are you worried about getting older? About where we're headed? For a moment, something real flickered across his features. Guilt, maybe, or the shadow of the man I'd once loved. Sometimes I think about the choices I've made, he said quietly. This was it. Another opening, another chance for him to come clean. I waited, holding my breath. Like what? I prompted gently. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw him waver. Saw him consider telling the truth, maybe even ending this charade with some dignity intact. Then his phone buzzed, and the moment shattered. It's nothing, he said, releasing my hands to check his messages. Just overthinking things. I glimpsed enough of the text to see Melissa's name and the words, "Can't do this anymore," before he angled the screen away. Well, I said brightly, that's what birthday parties are for. Celebrating how far you've come and looking forward to the future. Friday morning, Jake made his final play. I found him at the kitchen table with his laptop open, looking grave. I have bad news. The Hendersons complained to the landlord about the party. Something about insurance liability. We might have to move the whole thing. I leaned over his shoulder, pretending to read his screen while actually admiring my reflection in the black monitor. He'd been too panicked to actually open any emails. That's strange, I said. Because I talked to Mrs. Henderson yesterday, and she offered to help with setup. Even volunteered to make her famous spinach dip. Jake's fingers hovered over the keyboard, probably wondering if he could fake an email from a property management company in real time. Maybe there was a miscommunication, he said weakly. Maybe. I patted his shoulder. Good thing I confirmed the community center is back up months ago. The party's happening, Jake. One way or another. By Friday evening, Jake had moved beyond panic into what I can only describe as a state of barely controlled hysteria. He paced our apartment like a caged animal, checking his phone obsessively and jumping at every sound from the hallway. I was in the bedroom, laying out my outfit for tomorrow, a sleek black dress that hugged every curve he'd called ugly, when I heard him on the phone in the living room. His voice was low, urgent, and I crept closer to listen. I don't care what you have to do, just don't show up tomorrow, he was saying. Tell them you have the flu, food poisoning, anything. A pause, then, because it's complicated, okay? Emily's invited everyone and, no, I can't just tell her the truth now. Do you know how crazy that would make me look? Crazy, I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. Not guilty. Not sorry. Crazy. Look, just give me a few more weeks to figure this out. I'll break up with her after things cool down, and then we can. I'd heard enough. I cleared my throat loudly and walked into the living room, watching him scramble to end the call. Work again? I asked innocently. Yeah, just coordinating some client stuff for next week. But his hands were shaking as he set the phone down. You know, I said, settling beside him on the couch, I'm really proud of how hard you've been working lately. All those late nights, weekend calls. You're so dedicated. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I was thinking, I continued, maybe at the party tomorrow, I should mention to your boss how much effort you've been putting in. Really highlight your commitment. No, he said quickly. I mean, that's not necessary. I prefer to let my work speak for itself. Humble as always. I leaned against his shoulder, feeling him tense. That's one of the things I love about you. You never take credit for all the time you spend helping people. His phone buzzed with a text. Then another. And another. I felt him reach for it, then stop himself, probably remembering I was right there. Sounds important, I said. Go ahead, check it. It's fine. Probably just spam. But the buzzing continued, insistent and rhythmic like an alarm. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. I should probably, in case it's an emergency. He grabbed the phone and headed for the bathroom, muttering something about privacy. Through the thin walls, I heard his muffled voice rising in what sounded like an argument. When he emerged 20 minutes later, his face was ashen. Everything okay? I asked, not looking up from the magazine I was pretending to read. Fine. Everything's fine. But it clearly wasn't. Over the next hour, his phone continued its relentless buzzing. Each notification made him jump, and I watched him fight the urge to check it. Finally, he cracked. I need to run out for a bit, he said, grabbing his keys. Just getting some last-minute stuff for tomorrow. At 10 p.m.? Most stores are closed. Gas station. Need cigarettes. Jake had quit smoking 2 years ago. Want me to come with you? I offered sweetly. No. Too quick, too desperate. I mean, no need. I'll be quick. He practically ran out the door, leaving his anxiety hanging in the air like smoke. I gave him 5 minutes, then quietly slipped out to follow. I found him 3 blocks away, standing under a streetlight in heated conversation with a figure I recognized even from a distance. Melissa. Her body language screamed distress, hands gesturing wildly, head shaking back and forth. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. The story was written in their postures, in Jake's frantic gestures and Melissa's obvious panic. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. I watched from the shadows as their argument escalated. Jake grabbed Melissa's arm, pulling her closer, but she yanked away so forcefully she nearly stumbled. Even from my hiding spot behind a parked car, I could see tears streaming down her face. Finally, she threw her hands up in a gesture of defeat and walked away, leaving Jake standing alone under the streetlight. He stood there for several long minutes, running his hands through his hair, before slowly making his way back home. I took the long way back, giving myself time to process what I'd witnessed. By the time I slipped back into our apartment, Jake was already in bed, pretending to sleep. But I could tell from his breathing that he was wide awake, probably staring at the ceiling and contemplating his rapidly shrinking options. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crystalline clarity that makes everything feel sharper, more real. Jake emerged from the bedroom looking like he'd been hit by a truck, dark circles under his eyes, hair disheveled, that particular pallor that comes from a sleepless night of pure panic. Morning, birthday boy, I chirped, sliding a cup of coffee across the counter to him. Ready for your big day? He stared at the mug like it might contain poison. Actually, I've been thinking. Oh no, I interrupted, no more thinking. We've done enough thinking this week. Today is about celebrating. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through messages. Your mom texted, they landed safely and they're so excited. And look, Mike posted a photo from the road. He's about 2 hours out. Jake's coffee mug slipped from his fingers, shattering against the kitchen floor in an explosion of ceramic and dark liquid. Shit, sorry, he mumbled, dropping to his knees to collect the pieces. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the fragments. Hey, I said, kneeling beside him, it's okay. Just a mug. I gently took the broken pieces from his trembling fingers. Jake, you're scaring me a little. Are you sure you're feeling all right? For a moment, I thought he might actually break down right there on our kitchen floor. His eyes were glassy, his breathing shallow, and when he looked at me, I saw something I'd never seen before, complete defeat. I need to tell you something, he whispered. My heart stopped. This was it. Finally. After all the games and lies and manipulation, he was going to come clean. Part of me, a small, traitorous part, almost wanted to stop him. To tell him it was okay, that we could work through whatever this was. But then I remembered his voice calling me ugly, his casual cruelty, his complete lack of remorse. What is it? I asked softly, sitting back on my heels. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I could practically see the words forming, the confession building in his throat. Then his phone rang. The sound cut through the tension like a knife, and Jake's head snapped toward it with desperate relief. That might be. Let it ring, I said firmly. Tell me what you were going to say. But the spell was broken. The moment had passed, and I watched as Jake rebuilt his walls in real time, brick by brick. He stood up, brushing dust from his knees, his mask sliding back into place. It's nothing important, he said, his voice artificially steady. Just pre-party nerves, I guess. The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. You should answer that, I said, standing and turning away before he could see my expression. I'll clean up the coffee. As he hurried to grab his phone, I swept up the broken ceramic and wondered if he realized he'd just missed his last chance for mercy. I spent the next few hours watching Jake unravel in slow motion. He paced the apartment like a caged animal, checking his phone obsessively, jumping at every sound from the hallway. When the delivery truck arrived with the rented tables and chairs, he practically launched himself at the window. Maybe we should cancel, he said suddenly, turning from where he'd been staring down at the street. I mean, what if I'm coming down with something? I wouldn't want to get everyone sick. I looked up from arranging flowers in a vase, yellow roses, his mother's favorite. You seemed fine yesterday. And the day before. And all week, actually. I tilted my head, studying him with mock concern. This wouldn't have anything to do with that work emergency you've been dealing with, would it? His face went white. What do you mean? Well, you've been so stressed about it. All those phone calls, the late nights. I just thought maybe it's affecting your health. I set the vase down and walked over to him, reaching up to feel his forehead. You do feel a little warm. He jerked away from my touch like I burned him. I'm fine. Maybe we're rushing into this. Big parties are expensive, and with the economy. Jake. I kept my voice gentle, understanding. Your family is already on their way. Your friends have been looking forward to this for weeks. We can't just cancel because you're feeling a little under the weather. The doorbell rang, and Jake actually yelped. Through the window, I could see the catering van pulling up outside. That's lunch, I announced cheerfully. Perfect timing. Why don't you help them bring everything up while I finish decorating? Seriously, I think. Jake. I turned to face him fully, and for just a moment, I let my mask slip. Let him see something real in my eyes. Stop. Just stop. He stared at me, and I watched understanding dawn across his features. Not the full truth, he wasn't quite there yet, but the beginning of it. The realization that I wasn't the naive girlfriend he thought he could manipulate indefinitely. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. They're waiting, I said softly. Like a man walking to his execution, Jake headed for the door. I listened to him mumble instructions to the caterers, his voice hollow and mechanical. When I peeked around the corner, I saw him standing in the hallway, staring at nothing while uniformed workers bustled around him with trays and warming dishes. My phone buzzed with a text from his sister. Can't wait to meet the girl who finally tamed our Jake. Mom's been bragging about you to everyone. See you in an hour. Red heart. I screenshotted it and added it to my presentation. Right after the slide showing Jake's romantic dinner receipts with Melissa, and right before the one with their vacation photos from the weekend, he told me he was visiting his sick grandmother. Jake's voice came from the kitchen, shaky and small. How many people did you say were coming? I consulted my list, though I had the number memorized. 43 confirmed. Maybe a few more if people bring plus ones. I paused, pretending to count. Your parents, your sister and her husband, your college friends, work colleagues, my family, neighbors, and I invited a few people from your gym. They seemed so excited when I mentioned it. You went to my gym? Last week. I thought it would be nice to include everyone who cares about you. I smiled brightly. The trainer, Kevin? He said he'd love to come. And that woman from your spin class, Sarah? She was so sweet. Said she'd definitely be there. Jake gripped the counter so hard his knuckles went white. Which woman from spin class? Blonde, about our age. Very fit. She knew you pretty well, mentioned how you two always end up next to each other on the bikes. I watched his face carefully. She seemed lovely. I can't wait to properly meet her. The caterers chose that moment to wheel in another cart of food, and Jake stumbled backward to get out of their way. One of them, a cheerful woman with graying hair, beamed at him. You must be the birthday boy. Your girlfriend's been raving about you all week. You're a lucky man, she's put together quite the celebration. Yeah, Jake whispered, his eyes finding mine across the crowded kitchen. Lucky me. The first guests arrived fashionably early, my parents and my sister Claire, armed with wrapped gifts and bright smiles. I watched Jake's face crumple slightly as he realized there was no turning back now. Real people were here, in our apartment, expecting a celebration. Jake. Mom enveloped him in one of her trademark bear hugs. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Emma's been planning this for weeks, she's barely talked about anything else. Has she? Jake's voice came out strangled. His eyes darted to me over Mom's shoulder, a silent plea for mercy that I pretended not to see. Oh yes, Claire chimed in, setting down a bottle of wine. She showed me her whole presentation about your relationship timeline. It's so romantic, all your special moments together, your trips, your favorite restaurants. Very thorough. The color drained completely from Jake's face. Presentation? Don't spoil the surprise, I said quickly, shooting Claire a look that could have melted steel. He's not supposed to know about that yet. Dad clapped Jake on the back, nearly sending him stumbling forward. Son, you better hang on to this one. Takes a special woman to put together something like this. Before Jake could respond, the doorbell rang again. Through the peephole, I could see his college roommate Mike, looking travel-worn but excited, holding a six-pack and grinning. Mike's here, I announced, and watched Jake's last hope of escape die in his eyes. The next 30 minutes were a masterclass in psychological torture, though I'd never call it that out loud. I watched Jake struggle through small talk with people who genuinely cared about him, people who had no idea they were attending his social funeral. He kept glancing at the door like he might bolt, but there was nowhere to run. More guests kept arriving, his work colleagues, my college friends, neighbors from our building. Emma, this is incredible, gushed his coworker Janet, gesturing at the decorations. You've really outdone yourself. Jake's so lucky to have someone who pays attention to detail like this. Oh, I pay attention to everything, I replied sweetly, accepting her compliment with a smile. I've documented our entire relationship. Every dinner, every trip, every special moment. Jake's going to be so surprised when he sees how much I've noticed. Jake choked on his beer. The real turning point came when his parents arrived. His mother, Linda, was exactly as I'd imagined from their FaceTime calls, warm, elegant, with Jake's same dark eyes and ready smile. His father was quieter but kind, shaking my hand with genuine warmth. Emily, dear, Linda said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like expensive perfume and maternal love. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to finally meet you properly. Jake talks about you constantly. Does he? I glanced at Jake, who looked like he might be sick. All good things, I hope. Oh, the best things. He told us just last week how grateful he is to have found someone so understanding and supportive. Linda beamed at her son. He said you never make him feel guilty about his busy schedule, that you trust him completely. The irony was so thick I could taste it. That's so sweet of him to say. Jake's sister Emma arrived with her husband Tom, completing the family set. I watched Jake's world shrink with each new face, each person who expected to celebrate him while having no idea who he really was. When do we get to see this famous presentation? Tom asked, helping himself to the catered appetizers. Emma says you put together something really special. Soon, I promised, checking my watch. We were at about half capacity now, with the remaining guests filtering in over the next 20 minutes. I want to make sure everyone's here first. Some surprises are worth waiting for. Jake excused himself to the bathroom, and I knew he was probably in there having a panic attack. Perfect timing. While Jake was hiding in the bathroom, the doorbell rang again. I opened it to find Kevin from his gym, tall, muscular, with the kind of easy confidence that came from knowing exactly who you were. Behind him stood Sarah from spin class, the blonde I'd mentioned earlier. Emily. Sarah practically bounced through the door. Thank you so much for inviting me. I brought my boyfriend Mark, hope that's okay? My smile faltered for just a microsecond. Sarah had a boyfriend. Which meant. Of course, I managed, my mind racing. If Sarah wasn't Jake's gym affair partner, then who was? I'd been so certain when I saw them chatting after spin class last month, but maybe I'd misread the situation entirely. Where's the birthday boy? Kevin asked, scanning the crowded living room. He'll be right back, I said, but my confidence had taken a hit. Had I made a mistake? No, impossible. I had solid evidence of Jake's cheating. Just because Sarah wasn't the other woman didn't mean there wasn't one. Jake emerged from the bathroom looking pale but slightly more composed. He managed weak hellos to Kevin and Sarah, though I noticed his relief when he realized Mark was attached to Sarah's arm. Jake, man, you look terrible, Kevin observed with the bluntness of someone who spent his days telling people their form was wrong. You feeling all right? Just overwhelmed by all the attention, Jake muttered, shooting me a look that could have started fires. The apartment was getting crowded now. 37 people by my count, with a few more still expected. The noise level had risen to that pleasant party hum, voices mixing with background music and the occasional burst of laughter. Then Melissa walked in. She appeared in the doorway like she belonged there, holding a wrapped gift and wearing a red dress that hugged her curves perfectly. My former best friend, my boyfriend's secret lover, standing in my living room with the audacity to look surprised by the crowd. She called out, weaving through the guests toward me. This is amazing. You really went all out. Every instinct screamed at me to tear her perfectly styled hair out, but instead I hugged her like nothing had changed. Over her shoulder, I watched Jake's face cycle through pure terror, confusion, and something that might have been resignation. I'm so glad you could make it, I said, pulling back to study her face. Jake will be thrilled to see you. Will he? Something flickered in her expression, too quick to interpret but definitely not innocent surprise. The really twisted part was watching them try to act normal around each other. Jake nodded stiffly when Melissa approached to wish him happy birthday. She kept her distance, talking to other guests, but I caught the glances they exchanged when they thought no one was looking. Guilty, loaded glances that confirmed everything I already knew. Emily, dear, Linda appeared at my elbow. When are we doing the presentation? I'm so excited to see what you put together. Very soon, I promised, my eyes never leaving Jake and Melissa. I'm just waiting for a few more people. As if summoned by my words, the door opened again and in walked Jake's boss, Richard, with his wife. Jake's face went from pale to gray. Richard was old school, family values, the kind of man who still believed character mattered in business. Jake. Richard boomed, crossing the room with his hand extended. 43, eh? Prime of life, my boy. And this must be the girlfriend we've heard so much about. He shook my hand warmly while Jake stood frozen beside us. I hope you don't mind, Richard continued, but I brought along Peterson from the Chicago office. He's in town for the weekend, and when he heard about the party. Peterson. Jake's potential promotion contact. Everything was falling into place perfectly. Peterson turned out to be exactly what I'd hoped for, a distinguished man in his 50s with sharp eyes and the kind of presence that commanded respect. He was also exactly the type of person who would have strong opinions about character and integrity, especially in potential business partners. Jake speaks very highly of the Chicago opportunity, I said, shaking Peterson's hand while Jake stood rigid beside me. He's told me how much he values working with people who share his principles. Has he now? Peterson smiled, but I caught him studying Jake's pale, sweaty appearance. Well, character is everything in our line of work. We pride ourselves on hiring people whose personal lives reflect the same integrity we expect professionally. Jake made a strangled sound that he tried to pass off as clearing his throat. The apartment was officially packed now. 42 people, all here to celebrate a man who was about to have his entire carefully constructed world collapse. I excused myself to check on the presentation setup one final time, leaving Jake trapped in conversation with his boss and potential future employer. In the bedroom, I connected my laptop to the TV and pulled up the slideshow. 47 slides of pure devastation, each one more damning than the last. Photos of Jake and Melissa together, timeline inconsistencies, screenshots of deleted social media posts I'd managed to recover, credit card statements showing dinners for two on nights he'd claimed to be working late. But as I scrolled through the evidence one final time, something nagged at me. The photos were damning, yes, but they were mostly from group settings where I could have simply been cropped out. The timeline discrepancies were suspicious but not absolutely conclusive. What if Jake managed to talk his way out of this? What if he spun some story about Melissa helping him plan a surprise for me, or claimed the photos were taken out of context? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Nice party. Shame about what's going to happen to it. I stared at the message, ice forming in my stomach. Before I could process it fully, another text appeared from the same number. Jake isn't the only one with secrets, Emily. Check your email. With shaking hands, I opened my email app. There, sitting at the top of my inbox, was a message with no sender name and the subject line, before you do something stupid. The email contained a single attachment, a video file. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity and dread won over caution. The video started playing, and my blood turned to ice. It was security footage from the lobby of Melissa's apartment building, timestamp showing 3 weeks ago. There I was, clear as day, entering the building with what looked like a locksmith's kit. The video showed me coming back down 40 minutes later, looking around nervously before leaving. I remembered that day, I'd gotten into Melissa's apartment to gather evidence, including taking photos of items that could only have come from Jake. But if someone had this footage, they could spin it as breaking and entering. They could make me look like an obsessed, unstable ex-girlfriend who'd committed actual crimes to stalk her cheating boyfriend. Another text arrived. Call off your little presentation, or this video goes to Jake's boss, your employer, and the police. Your choice. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Someone knew exactly what I was planning, and they had the power to destroy me instead. But who? How? Through the bedroom door, I could hear the party continuing, oblivious to my panic. Jake's laughter rang out, probably the first genuine sound he'd made all evening, and it made my skin crawl. I had 15 minutes before my planned presentation time, and now everything was falling apart. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the threatening messages while party noise filtered through the door. My carefully planned revenge was crumbling, but something about the text felt off. The timing was too perfect, too convenient. Who could possibly know about my plans? I'd been meticulous about keeping everything secret. Unless. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? I answered, my voice barely steady. Emily. It was a woman's voice, disguised and distorted but definitely female. I hope you got my message. Who is this? Someone who knows exactly what you're planning to do tonight. And someone who can ruin your life if you go through with it. The voice was too altered to identify, but something about the cadence felt familiar. What do you want? I want you to walk out there, make a nice little toast about what a wonderful boyfriend Jake is, and forget about your little slideshow. Then I want you to delete everything you've gathered and move on with your life. And if I don't? Then that security footage gets sent to everyone who matters. Your boss will see you breaking into private property. Jake's boss will see what an unstable stalker he's been dating. The police will have evidence of actual crimes. My mind raced. The footage was real, but something didn't add up. How did you even get security footage from Melissa's building? A pause. Then, I have my sources. That hesitation told me everything. Nobody had sources for random apartment building security footage. Which meant whoever was calling had direct access to that building. Which meant. Melissa? I said quietly. The line went silent for several seconds too long. You don't know what you're talking about, the disguised voice finally said, but I'd heard the sharp intake of breath when I said the name. It is you. Pieces clicked into place. You knew I was planning something tonight. That's why you came to the party, not to keep up appearances, but to stop me. You've been watching, waiting to see what I do. You're delusional. Am I? Because I'm starting to think you're more worried about this than Jake is. He's terrified but resigned. You're actively trying to sabotage me. Which makes me wonder, what exactly are you so afraid of losing? Through the phone, I heard party sounds in the background. She was here, somewhere in my apartment, making this call. The audacity was breathtaking. 10 minutes, Emily. Make your choice. The line went dead. I stood up, legs shaky but mind clearer than it had been all evening. Melissa was desperate enough to threaten me with criminal charges. That level of desperation suggested I had more power than I'd realized. But I also had a real problem. That security footage existed, and it could genuinely destroy me. Breaking and entering charges would end my career, possibly land me in jail. Even if I could prove Jake was cheating, the cost might be my entire future. I walked to the bedroom door and cracked it open, scanning the crowded room. There was Melissa, standing near the kitchen with her phone in her hand, looking directly at me. When our eyes met, she lifted the phone slightly and tapped the screen. Another message appeared on my phone, 8 minutes. Jake was trapped in conversation with Richard and Peterson, gesticulating nervously while sweat stains spread under his arms. His parents were chatting with my coworkers near the window. Everyone I'd gathered here to witness his humiliation was perfectly positioned for the revelation I might not be able to deliver. But looking at Melissa's smug face across the room, I realized something important. She was scared. Truly, desperately scared. People only get that scared when they have everything to lose. Looking at Melissa's face across the room, I made a decision that surprised even me. Instead of cowering, I smiled and gave her a small wave. Her expression shifted from smugness to confusion as I mouthed thank you in her direction. Because she just made a critical mistake. I pulled out my phone and started typing a text to Jake, emergency in the bedroom. Come here now. Don't bring anyone. I hit send and watched as his phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it, then looked toward the bedroom door where I was standing. I waved him over urgently. Jake excused himself from his conversation with Peterson and made his way through the crowd, looking increasingly panicked. The moment he stepped into the bedroom, I closed the door behind him. What's wrong? He asked, and for a second I almost felt sorry for him. He looked genuinely terrified. Melissa just called me, I said quietly. She has security footage of me entering her building 3 weeks ago. She's threatening to send it to the police if I expose you tonight. Jake's face went through several colors before settling on a sickly gray. What were you planning to expose? I gestured to the laptop connected to the TV. Everything. Photos of you two together, timeline inconsistencies, credit card statements, deleted social media posts. I had 47 slides ready to go. He sat down heavily on the bed, head in his hands. Jesus, Emily. Here's what I don't understand though, I continued, watching his reaction carefully. Why would Melissa have access to her building's security footage? That's not something you can just request. You need connections, or... I let the implication hang. Jake's head snapped up. Or what? Or she's been planning this longer than either of us realized. I sat down across from him. Jake, does Melissa work for a security company? Property management? Something that would give her access to surveillance systems? She does freelance IT work, he said slowly. She mentioned getting a contract with some property management group a few months ago. The pieces clicked. She set this up. The building, the access, probably even encouraged you to bring me there at some point so she'd have footage of me for leverage. Jake stared at me. That's insane. Is it? Think about it. She befriended me, got close to both of us, systematically destroyed our relationship while positioning herself as your backup plan. And now she's threatening criminal charges to protect her investment. Through the door, we could hear the party continuing. Someone was telling a story that had everyone laughing. Normal people having a normal time, completely unaware of the psychological warfare happening 20 feet away. What do you want me to do? Jake asked quietly. I want you to think very carefully about whether you're a cheating asshole or if you're a victim of someone much more calculating than either of us realized. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Both, he finally said. I made the choice to cheat. But Emily, some of the things that happened, the way opportunities just kept presenting themselves, the way she always knew exactly what to say to make me feel justified. He looked up at me. I think she's been playing both of us. My phone buzzed with another text from Melissa, 5 minutes. I can see you're both in there. Don't make me come get you. She's watching us, I said, showing Jake the message. Which means she's probably been watching us this whole time. Jake's expression hardened. What if we call her bluff? I could go to prison, Jake. What if you don't have to? He stood up, pacing to the window. What if there's a way to turn this around on her? Before I could ask what he meant, there was a knock on the bedroom door. Emily? Melissa's voice, sweet and concerned. Is everything okay in there? People are starting to ask where you are. I looked at Jake, then at the door where Melissa waited. Something crystallized in that moment, a perfect, beautiful realization. Come in, I called out. Melissa entered, closing the door behind her. The three of us stood there in a triangle of tension, but for the first time all evening, I felt completely calm. Having second thoughts, she asked, that fake sweetness dripping from her voice. Actually, yes, I said. I've been thinking about what you said on the phone. About sources and security footage and having so much power over my life. Her smile widened. Good. Then you'll... I've been thinking about how someone gets security footage from a building they don't live in, I continued. And Jake just told me something very interesting about your new IT contract. The smile flickered. But mostly, I've been thinking about this. I held up my phone, showing the voice recording app that had been running since before she entered the room. 47 minutes of recorded conversation, including your lovely disguised phone call and these threats you're making right now. Melissa's face went white. You can't. Can't what? Record someone threatening me with false criminal charges in my own home? Actually, I can. I stepped closer. But here's what's really beautiful about this situation. You've been so focused on that security footage that you forgot something important. What? She whispered. Extortion is a felony. Accessing computer systems without authorization, like building security cameras, that's a federal crime. And conspiracy to commit fraud? I gestured between her and Jake. That's what this whole setup has been, hasn't it? A long con to isolate me and manipulate both of us. Jake stepped forward. The property management contract, he said slowly. You specifically requested buildings in this area, didn't you? You planned this. Melissa's composure finally cracked. You don't understand. I did this for us, Jake. She was never right for you. I made you see that. By manipulating and lying to both of us, I said. By destroying friendships and orchestrating betrayals. By committing actual crimes to cover it up. Through the door, I could hear my guests starting to wonder where we were. Someone knocked. Emily? Everything all right? It was Sarah's voice. Perfect timing, I said, walking to the laptop. But instead of opening my slideshow about Jake's cheating, I opened a new browser window and logged into my email. What are you doing? Melissa asked, panic creeping in. Sending this recording to the FBI Cybercrime Unit. And to your IT contractor licensing board. And to the property management company whose systems you've been illegally accessing. I started typing. You're right that I could face charges for trespassing. But you're facing federal cybercrime charges, extortion, and conspiracy. Want to compare sentences? Melissa lunged for the laptop, but Jake caught her arm. Don't. Send it, he said to me. Send all of it. I'd rather face the consequences of what I actually did than be part of whatever this is. I hit send, then opened the bedroom door. The party sounds rushed and normal, happy people living their normal, drama-free lives. Actually, everything's perfect now, I called to Sarah. Then I turned back to Jake and Melissa. You two deserve each other. But you won't be destroying anyone else's life to get there. 6 months later, Jake and I weren't together, that bridge was thoroughly burned. But I wasn't the broken, ugly girl he tried to make me believe I was. I was the woman who'd outsmarted a sociopath and sent her to federal prison. Melissa got 3 years. Jake got probation for his minor role in the conspiracy. I got my self-respect back. Best revenge ever.